Hello and welcome to the Brabantse Pijl of 2018. It is the 58th running of this famous Flemish classic. We're in the Brabant region of Flanders for the transition across to the Ardennes Classic, still very much in Flanders, but it's a different character of an event and a different atmosphere around it as well today as we survey the scene over and around the surrounding region. Well, it's a somewhat subdued peloton that has assembled to get ready for 202 kilometers of racing. 27 climbs or côtes to be engaged with by the riders today. And one not among their number, of course, is Pijl. His sad and tragic passing while taking part in Paris-Roubaix last Sunday has really consumed the thoughts of everyone involved in the sport over the last few days. They're the riders that have won this event in recent years. Sonny Colbrelli's back to defend his title. Peter Vakoc, great first and second place in the last couple of years, but unfortunately he's injured, and we wish him well in his recovery from that training crash in South Africa a few years ago. Ben Herman's the most recent winner of the long list of Belgian riders. And as I say, it was quite a subdued peloton that assembled for a minute's silence ahead of the start. Pijl Scott among all the teams that well, they managed some smiles, but pretty much everyone's thoughts are over the border in Lille in France, and it was the Wellens squad that took to the podium to a round of applause from the large crowd assembled in Leuven this morning. And it was after consultation with the Gollarts family that it was decided that the Wellens squad would actually take part in this event. They would honour the memory of their fallen comrade, just 23 years of age, and succumbing to a cardiac event which led to the crash and ultimately to his untimely passing late on Sunday evening. All the riders deep in thoughts. Well, those are the moments at the beginning of the day's action, but once they got underway, this is what the riders faced this afternoon. 27 calls, Hellingen, call them what you will. They are grippy, to say the least. We're getting into a different character of an event to that which we've had over the last few weeks. There are a certain amount of cobbles to be undertaken, and the climbs not quite as long as they'll have to look forward to in Liège-Bastogne-Liège or Amstel Gold, but this one is getting towards the kind of level of difficulty that they'll experience in Amstel Gold. It's coming up on Sunday, of course, here on Eurosport. 3 local laps, as you can see, to be traversed at the back end of the course. 3 laps of just over 23 kilometers, and there are 4 tough climbs on each of those local laps. So it's definitely a final that has plenty of arduous climbing built into the final, and fittingly it was the Wellens riders that led the peloton away for the ceremonial start from the traditional start town of Leuven, capital of Flemish Brabant. Flag came in, no surprise. It was the Wellens squad on the attack right from the get-go, trying to get up the road in the early break. Well, that was all earlier. We pick up the live pictures now. The race is very much on towards the back end, and there is a group of 7 up the road, and it does, as I said, contain a member of the Wellens squad. Dries de Bont is in there. Road Roubaix, the only member of the lineup today who was in the Paris-Roubaix lineup last Sunday, and he's honouring the memory of Michael Gollarts by taking part and getting up the road in that early break. And while the riders are very much into the final part, 87 kilometres still to run, but you can sense that this race is very much up and running. This is a Brabantse Pijl of 2018, 202 kilometres in total, but 87 kilometres remaining, and 2 minutes 42 remaining of the advantage of this 7 raiders out front. Went right from the flag drop at the beginning of the day, and their advantage up over 7 minutes at one stage. It's quite a lot less than that, as Edward Plankert Carries a very famous name, but hasn't quite got the legs for it today. He's not enjoying things as the Vital Concept Cycling Club trying to keep Brian Coquard, second rider in line here, well to the fore. Looks like he's coping with the climbs well. He's got a fearsome sprint. Can he produce it up the sharp climb to the finish of today's action? Well, there's a long way to go before we discover that, but it's something of an elimination race from the back at the moment as riders are being shelled out in ones and twos, and that's a significantly thinned down peloton indeed from the 144 riders who took to the start line in Leuven this morning. Brabantse Pijl is underway for 2018, and we're into the back end. Alongside me to run the rule over runners and riders this afternoon is Magnus Baxter, a man who knows these roads, knows exactly what this race holds for the riders, and knows exactly how this race differs from the Grandes Classics that we've had so far this spring. Magnus, it is a very different character of an event.
Yeah, it is actually. It's almost a mix between the Ardennes Classics and the Flandrian Classics. Got some of the slightly longer climbs to deal with. There's a little bit of cobblestone to work through as well, and it sits quite nicely in between the two blocks of racing with with the sort of Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders and Ghent-Wevelgem, and then going in towards the Ardennes now with Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège to finish off with.
So it's a transition race, isn't it?
It kind of is a transition race, and yeah, quite a nice one at that. But the finish of this race tends to be very, very difficult to deal with. There's quite a bit of climbing coming in the last couple of kilometers heading into to the finish line, and very rarely do we find a full bunch sprint going up here, but actually more of a rider who can climb and has a fast finish. Last year we saw Colbrelli, typical type of the Brabantse Pijl type of rider. I'd say Enrico Gasparotto, who's also here for Bahrain Merida, just second man in line there in the gold helmet. Coquard, maybe. I think it will be borderline too much for him with the amount of climbing in the final couple of kilometers, but remains to be seen. And there's obviously an awful lot of other riders here to battle this out today.
He's been top 10 in this race in the past, has Brian Coquard, but not quite managed to generate the power necessary to get to the line. Fourth indeed in 2016, and he's one of the pre-event favourites, and clearly for Vital Concept Cycling Club, an interesting move indeed for Brian Coquard to move down to pro-continental level. And
I'm not sure it's quite worked out for him the way he saw that happening.
They're not getting the invites that he might have hoped
No.
for, so he's not getting quite the racing action in terms of the very, very top events that he would have looked forward to. So for Coquard, it's an interesting move, but how will it play out over seasons? It's not just over 1 year, is it, that these decisions are made, and the implications of them. A little bit of an adjustment made by Edvald Boasson-Hagen there, no harm, no foul, but he just finds his way around. Number 51 there with the big black Q on his back.
There's a man who I think could do well today. That is typical Boasson-Hagen kind of territory.
He's never ridden this race. I was looking at the prior form of some of the leading riders, and Edvald Boasson-Hagen, the Norwegian former national champion, he's 30 years of age now, and for Team Dimension Day, it hasn't been a great year, has it? So they could really do with a bit of a boost.
They've had I think if they didn't have bad luck, they would have had no luck at all. And it's really unfortunate for them, and to see how Mark Cavendish on the floor again and again and again, and there's so many of their riders who've just always been caught at sort of the wrong time, and just ended up with bad crashes, and almost I sense there's a bit of frustration within the team amongst the riders, and probably to a certain extent amongst the staff as well. They're trying so hard, trying everything they can, and the more you try, the worse it goes, and the more sort of bad judgments do you make on the bike, and end up sort of putting yourself in the wrong place and losing out on the wins because of that, rather than, which is obviously extremely difficult to do, but to back off and just relax and let it come to you. Stop chasing the wins, but just go out there and enjoy racing their bikes together, like we've seen them do so many times before, and get that family spirit that this particular team has got, and probably starting to find little fractures within that at the moment, because they're not quite
tension
getting
is rising,
the tension,
yeah.
So
it's so difficult to have the necessary intensity to really want to win, and at the same moment be relaxed enough to allow it. I mean, it's almost contradictory requirements.
The longer it takes to get that win, the more the more difficult it becomes, and the more you chase after it, the more you panic to get it, because you have to have that win, and then that's when they stop coming.
Well, wish them well. Wish Mark Cavendish well in his recovery as well. A string of 3 accidents in quick succession, none really of his making, and he's currently recovering and chomping at the bit, I think, to get back into the action. Seven riders up front. They get first sight of the hills that wait the bunch behind. Now just under 3 minutes behind the bunch, of throttle back, having been over the most recent challenge that they faced at the back of the group. He's suffering a little bit. The style would suggest it is the Romanian rider Edward Michael Grossu with the Italian Nippo Vini Fantini squad. It's a Pro Continental outfit, distinctive orange bikes. Nippo Vini Fantini's been around in various different incarnations for quite a long time now, and Grossu's been with them for a few years as well, and he's enjoying his period out front. Let's give you the name check of the riders that are involved in this group. Just pulling over on the right hand side with the dark blue colours with that gold chevron. That's the Aqua Blue Sport team, represented by the young Aussie Calvin Watson. That's a team that's been in the news as well. They haven't been getting the invites that they would have liked. We can chat about that a little bit later on. Also there is Tyler Williams for Israel Cycling Academy. He's in the sky blue colours, sky blue and white, number 117. The orange on the front is the Rompot rider from the Netherlands. They're all Dutch riders on this team. Elmar Reinders is a man who typically likes to get up the road into the early break if he possibly can. Another man with similar ambitions and similar plans and strategies at the beginning of most races is Team Novo Nordisk. Andrea Perron, the Italian rider, representing them, second in line at the moment in those darker blue colours. Brendus Willems Krellen, as I've mentioned earlier. Dries de Bont. Well, what a week, what a few days it's been for the Brandus Willems Krellen squad, and the entire squad of riders. Indeed, it was present in Louvain for the start of today's race, because, well, it's such an emotional few days. It really has been a roller coaster for everyone involved in that team, and it's difficult moments. It was difficult for all of these riders to take to the start line today. Their minds must have been a jumble of thoughts, and, well, they have taken on the challenge in the memory of Michael Gollarts, and Dries de Bont is up the road in the breakaway group, and completing the lineup of riders up the road is Antoine Warnier for the WB Aquaprotect Varan Classic. We'll get a side of him again. His teammates back safely in the bunch behind, as the Vital Concept squad trying to mass and gravitate towards the front. The blue colours there of the French Pro Continental team. They want to keep Brian Cocard in good shape, and Bahrain Merida are the reigning champions, and they've got ability aplenty. This is Arashiro on the front of the group, setting the tempo on the Hofstade. That is first of 4 ascents indeed of this climb. Now you see it, 5.4% on average, just under a kilometre in length. At its grippiest, just over double figures. So taken in isolation, no one of these hills is particularly difficult for any of these riders, but put them all together, that's a very different story altogether. Remy Mertz has been dangling off the back of this group for quite a while, but he's persevering. He believes he can get back in. Notable that so many riders, of course, are wearing black armbands. All the Lotto Soudal squad have the black armbands, the Belgian registered team, and of course Michael Gollarts was a member of the under-23 Lotto squad quite a while before he moved. Indeed, he was moving back to the Brandus Willems Krellen team in 2017. This was to be his second full year as a fully paid professional, ending in such tragic circumstances oh so soon. 80 kilometres remaining. The Bahrain Merida squad own it on the front of the peloton. The gap now steadily coming down, and this is all about trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible for as many people in there while maintaining a pace that Sonny Colbrelli and perhaps to a slightly lesser extent Enrico Gasparotto, of course, has a good second place finish. 2 years ago Gasparotto was second. He's a rider who really relishes and loves this time of year, goes very well in the Ardennes Classics and indeed this particular Flemish one, and he's certainly a great number 2 plan for them, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely, and he climbs well enough, and he's also got that sprint to deal with a finish as well, because it's very rare that we see a solo win, and just because I'm saying that, it's probably going to happen today, but we very rarely do see
Tim Wellens has plans on that.
Yeah, exactly. We see a solo win on this particular course, but like I said, Gasparotto started his life as a sprinter and has then changed and become more of a classics Ardennes Classics rider than anything else, really. And yeah, interesting to see whether he can get up there today, or whether they play all the cards on Colbrelli to defend the title.
Antoine Warnier, another rider with the black armband. He's a Belgian rider with the WB Aquaprotect Baron Classic squad. As Rosu, the a Romanian rider with the Nippo Vini Fantini squad, scrolls through. And the breakaway group controlling and managing as best they can that 2.5 minute advantage. Dries de Bont will leave nothing. He'll put it all out on the road today to last as long as he possibly can up front. And you know where his thoughts are at the moment. So 2.5 minutes to the good for the 7 out front. We're going to get a quick commercial break out of the way, but don't go away. We'll be right back to you for the next part of Brabantse Pijl after these. They're climbing again. It is relentless in this part of the world as Brabantse Pijl works its way down towards a conclusion. The breakaway group of 7, well, they haven't fractured yet. They've controlled a pace that is as uncomfortable as necessary to allow all of the riders to remain in there, but significant and enough progress is maintained to make sure that the group stays together. Not much in the way of wind in this part of the world at the moment, as you can tell from the flags hanging limp on the flagpoles. On this, the latest of the climbs, 27 in total across the balance of the afternoon for the riders, and this breakaway group winching itself towards the top of another one as they get across the Iskerdelaan for the first of 4 visits to this hill, named after the local river. Iskerdelaan, and the final climb, of course, will be the Skavai, and that will take us down to the finish line. And that coming in about 5 kilometres time, just under 5 kilometres. So this is the group of 7 out front. Its gap having extended, but the bunch are going to hit the bottom of it very shortly, and when they do, it'll be about crowding your way into a decent position to ensure that you've got the optimum situation, and you're not disadvantaged by anything that might happen on the hill in terms of other riders striking difficulties or any attack that might happen. What about the CCC Sprande Polkowice? They've got a couple of strong riders. Speaking of riders being inconvenienced, oh, that was definitely not planned, and I think that indeed was Eddie Dunbar, young Eddie Dunbar, the Irish rider, just 21 years of age. Great 5th place finish in the
Lucky he's got them big 30 mil tyres on there, so he wouldn't have made too much difference for him.
Well, a little shake of the head there, as if to say, how did that happen exactly? The young man from Cork, who's starting to make a name for himself. First year on the Pro Continental at Pro Continental level, due to make his World Tour debut on Sunday in the Amstel Gold, and a little bit of cyclocross practice there for him ahead of that.
And yeah, never goes amiss, really, does it, to get that? But yeah, like I said, lucky he's got those big 30 mil tyres that they put in that 3T bike to get the extra comfort as well.
Yeah, he's got a rider in the break, so we can maybe get a look at his Calvin Watson's bike in a little while, because it really is unique in world in world cycling in how they've set up the gearing system. We'll talk about that in a bit, but the bunch now on the Iskerdelaan, and it is considerably animated bunch. They'll eat into that advantage now. It's Bahrain Meridera being allowed to own this one. They certainly are showing the ambition, and they want to take this one on. They want to own it at the front. Riders at the back have a different ambition right now.
Yeah, I think the ambition at the back is more staying on the back of the bunch, whereas clearly Bahrain Merida got this very much under control and wanting to remain in control as well. But here we go, a bit of a move straight away.
Yeah, and everyone wants to be aware of what's happening with Lotto Soudal, because they've got the big guns to fire, Tish Benoit and Tim Wellens, and it would be not any surprise to see those riders trying their luck, trying to just shake it a little bit and see if they can surprise some of the other squads. Well, Lotto NL Jumbo, the Dutch outfit, well aware and alive to any danger. CCC Sprande Polkovica, as I mentioned, have two very strong, well, three riders really that have been going well at the moment. Jan Tratnik won Volta Limburg over similar terrain, albeit not quite as stiff an level of opposition, and František Cicer won Ronde van Drent. That's the CCC Sprande Polkovica, the Polish registered team, in the orange colours. Two teams here, predominantly orange. Got the Rompot squad, they've got sort of black stripes, and then it's pretty much all orange for the CCC Sprande Polkovica squad. Group up front, rolling through. It all looks a lot less intense for them, but those riders will be starting to feel it now. They've been out front since the very start, so that's well, getting on for what, 127 kilometers, and that is well, it's not at the outside of these riders' endurance capabilities, but
far
it's
from it.
a decent level of intensity, and it's starting to ramp up behind.
Well, it definitely wears you down when you have to go through, but it's still a reasonable group, and as long as they're working well together, then you find yourself actually finding it quite comfortable to be a part of a group like this. But as we're getting in towards the Schaarweg, heading up towards the finish line as well, this is where it starts getting very difficult on this circuit. Quite a technical run-in towards the finish as well. We've got a couple of left and right hand corners, and then you're hitting a fairly steep climb actually, going up towards the finish line.
Few cobbles around, nothing of the intensity of the experience that riders will have had in Paris-Roubaix last weekend, or indeed any of the Flanders Classics to date, and it is a smooth section on the left-hand side that's proving very attractive. But well, for these riders, still it'll be starting to grip a little bit, and it's a good sight for the bunch as well. First time they're going to head up this one. 3 full laps, and it's pretty much, well, almost 4 full laps of this 23.5 kilometer circuit for the riders, and see the way it strings it out, and that's the natural consequence of the technical nature of this finale. And the riders, well, many will have ridden this race before, they'll be very familiar with this climb, but certainly that is going to play into how they ride the finale and ride the last lap in particular.
Yeah, it does, and it's a question of going with the front riders when they start moving up this section of the finish, and but still not going too deep, because by the time you get up here, it levels out a bit, and it's still that falls flat 2-3% uphill all the way to the finish line, and it does hurt you an awful lot. And to have anything left in your legs for a sprint as well, then you've got to be playing it really smart, and like I said, it does suit a particular type of rider.
Sitting Calvin Watson at the moment, the young Aussie racer with the Aqua Blue squad. He's on that 3T bike that you mentioned, Magnus, and it's only got one chainring out front. How can that be? How can that possibly be?
It's just awesome. Your big ring's everything.
Well, we've mentioned it before, but still, a lot of people, I guess, until you've ridden it, it's really difficult to get your mind around it. If you've grown up with the idea that you need 2, or even for some people 3 chain rings to get up hills and to have the right selection of gears and to have the right sort of range of gear ratios and not the big transfers between the sprockets, then you know that's what you need. So, but yeah. 3T have a different view.
Yeah, they definitely do, and you know, I actually got one of these bikes at home, and I've been riding it for a good couple of months now, and it did take me a little bit of time to get used to the fact that there were certain sprockets missing, But in terms of the extremities, in terms of the biggest gear that you need to go fast down a mountain, or the easiest one that you need going up a hill, not a problem at all to have the range of gears in that perspective. But yeah, it took a little bit of time for me to get used to just having that slight bigger jump in between a couple of the sprockets. But that's been worked on as well, and there's different ratios and different ways of building the cassettes up now being worked on. So as far as I'm concerned, the one by system is here to stay, and it feels so much better when you're actually riding it than having the double chainring on it. So I don't know why it does that, but it just feels good. So I'm definitely a convert, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm sure there's going to be people challenging me for why and all the rest of it, but you know, all I can say is give it a go and try it and see what you feel. But to me, it works so far.
Yeah, well, it's working okay for Calvin Watson at the moment. He's in the break up front. Meanwhile, pulling the pin and not looking at all happy is Ludovic Robert. Of course, he was in the break last week, wasn't he? The WB Aquaprotect Variant Classic rider, perhaps still feeling it a little bit. Tell you what, man who's not feeling it at all, but he's making others feel it, is Maxime Montfort for the Lotto Soudal squad. That's not a grin, that's a grimace. And he's making plenty of other riders feel something similar. Just on his wheel is Bertjan Lindemann, who has a good record in this race. The Lotto NL Jumbo rider in yellow is Bertjan Lindemann, 5th in this race 12 months ago. It's a parkour that he enjoys. Look at the way riders right throughout that group are really starting to feel the pinch. Eddie Dunbar managed to make it back in after his little indiscretion. But, in control of his facial features, if nothing else. But across the line, the bunch finding themselves just under 2 minutes behind. It's Maxime Montfort that wants to own this one for the Lotto Soudal, at least control it for a little while. Fortèche Panot and Tim Wellens, 3rd and 4th for the Lotto Soudal squad, respectively, 12 months ago. 3rd and a 4th is not as good as one rider getting 1st, though, and they'll want to make amends for that this year. Scave has been dealt with on one occasion, and now inside 70 kilometers remaining. Yukiya Arashiro of the Bahrain Merida squad has done some great work on the front of the peloton. He's gone back for a little bit of a breather, and he's not exactly getting it because Maxime Montfort has been setting a ferocious tempo on the front of the bunch to take the riders through the through the finish line, first of 4 visits, and up the Scave. Just levels off, plateaus ever so slightly at the finish, just to give something for the sprinters. But really, that's a tough climb. We're on the Haggard now, for the second time of asking, and it's the breakaway group up front. Just under 2 minutes to the good. 7 riders clear, as indeed they have been for quite a while this afternoon. Out of the saddle towards the front is Calvin Watson, and on the front is the WB Aquaprotect Variant Classic rider Antoine Warnier in the yellow colours, the orange colours. Just alongside him, the Dutchman Elmar Reinders from Roompot Nederlandse Loterij. Just behind him, Israel Cycling Academy, sky blue and white. On this occasion, it's Tyler Williams, the US rider with Israel Cycling Academy. And Dries de Bont of Randes Willems Krellen has honoured his squad and Belgian cycling, all world cycling indeed, by coming in the break today, and is putting his shoulder to the wheel. Edward Grossu too for Nippo Vini Fantini is 2nd from the back here. And just the last rider in the line is the Italian Andrea Peron from the team Nova Nordisk. All of these riders, I was going to say uniquely, but they're unique in collectively unique, you might say, if that's not an oxymoron. Andrea Peron suffers from diabetes, but doesn't let it change his life. Yeah,
that team is really quite interesting. How every single one of them have got diabetes, and they just showing how to deal with it and how to race competitively with it. And here we are now. Lotto still on the move, putting the pressure on and causing a fair bit of reaction from that peloton as well. Gasparotto trying to bridge across here now.
Yeah, noticeable that Teish Benoit just backed off of that one. He's leaving teammates to do this job and just sending them up the road as stalking horses, perhaps. And it's got to be Gasparotto. You see him third in line here in the red of Bahrain Merida. So he's stepping it up for the reigning champions and going to mark every big effort from Lotto Soudal.
Yeah, it looks like Bosenhagen is coming across there as well as one of the run put riders. So it's clearly a very, very dangerous one with Jelle van Endert.
So it's top riders, but not the very top riders from Lotto Soudal who are acting as the stalking horses. They're sending them out front just to see what they can do about shaking this one up, and they've shaken it up with some considerable facility, haven't they? Because that has put the cat among the pigeons. 118 to the group up front, but look at the way it hasn't quite broken the elastic, has it? When they come off the top of this this hill and get the next little descent, it's an opportunity for those riders to get back in the wheel, but the pace and the intensity is there in spades at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is. But all these twists and turns that we got on this particular circuit as well, it just helped to add into the fatigue of the riders. When you've just done that climb and you're on the back foot already, then every time you're going around the corner, you're having to kick back up to speed again. It just wears you down so quickly. And when you got riders like this lot here on the front, Lotto Soudal and Gasparotto, just trying to work out who that is from the Rompot team there, but straight away behind Edvald Bosenhagen.
My first thought was Lichtart, but actually I wonder, could it be Lichtart perhaps? Well, we wait for full confirmation. Weaning as well, is a good climber, but is he quite as tall as that? But he's carrying same stature. I wonder. It's a narrow advantage for that group. They're eating into taking big chunks out of the lead of the 7 up front. 4 riders frantic to try and get across that, because there's a sense that the race is really on now with fully 66 kilometers remaining. Well, the size of that group that you see in shot at the moment, picked up by the wonderful helicopter shots, I'll tell you what, they won't have to widen the shot that much by the time we come down to the last lap. Well, the heat's on and the big guns are starting to fire. Just over a minute to the 7 up front, and they're all starting to shout because they're pushing on towards the front of the peloton. Back to you after these. Well, it's all attack everywhere in this race at the moment as the breakaway group sense the catch coming from behind, and Grosu on the hurt strat for the second time of asking puts the hurt on everyone else. The Romanian rider with the Nippo Vini Fantini squad. Well, I suggested he was labouring a little on the climbs not so long ago. Turns out I was the one that was labouring under the misconception that he wasn't quite as strong as he clearly is. He's put a bit of distance between himself and the rest as Grosu has decided to stretch his legs a little bit and head for home. Well, he's hardly going to do that all on his own. I wonder, is anyone minded to try and come with him as we try and pick up some pictures? Well, these are the scenes at Louvain. It's the race has left there quite some time ago, so they're starting to break it all down, and the capital of Flemish Brabant is returning to some sort of normality after the visit of its premier bike race. Well, these are the scenes at Louvain this morning at the beginning of Brabantse Pijl, the big race in Flemish Brabant. 202 kilometers of racing, one HC category event. It's been that way since 2011. This race has begun. It's now in its 58th edition. Has run continuously since 1961, when the great Sicilian Pino Cerami, who had taken on Belgian citizenship by that time, took the victory. Such a popular figure in this part of the world. Indeed, lived in this part of the world until he passed on at the age of 92 in 2014. Cerami, the first victor, and this race has been dominated by the Belgians ever since. We're not seeing pictures at the moment. I have to apologise. We've just lost the feed. It's such a disappointment because Grosu had attacked from the breakaway group, and there was all action behind as well, with Jelle van Endert from the Lotto Soudal squad trying to set something up, trying to tee it up a little bit, and had hauled a group of 11 riders clear. That it involved at least 3 of his teammates. So advantage Lotto Soudal at the moment, but plenty of other riders involved in the hunt up front. It's all kicking off. We're going to try and see if we can stick the wires back together again and try and get some pictures for you. In the meantime, we're going to get a break out of the way. Back to you after this. That's all action now in Brabantse Pijl, the Flemish Brabant indeed classic. Struggling for languages, aren't they? We're moving across from Flanders to the French part of the world, as we're very much in the Flemish region at the moment, but a variety of languages on offer and a variety of different riders who believe that they can take the victory today, as Tosh van der Sande has Haig from the Mitchell & Scott squad for company in their efforts to try and, well, stay clear and close down the gap to the group up front. The 7 riders have split up front as well. The early breakaway group, Grosu, the Nippo Vinifantini rider, has gone solo, and he's hanging on as best he can from the others and hoping that some of the favourites come up behind to propel him to glory. It's the 58th running of Brabantse Pijl, and it's all action now. 44 seconds now the advantage for a lone leader up front, with other riders from the early breakaway in between, and it's a swelling group of favourites up front, but there's been considerable damage done on the last climb. Plenty of riders getting back into the fray, and they're still coming back in as it slows up just ever so slightly up front. For all that, though, there's a little bit of action on the front of the peloton, with Tosh van der Sande continuing the attack from Lotto Soudal. Clearly, with more than 70 kilometers remaining, Lotto Soudal have decided to light this one up.
Yeah, and I think to put themselves in a position where they also have a rider up the road that some of the other guys can bridge to at a later point should the race develop in that way. So right now they're sort of riding themselves into a strong position. They're on the way to towards catching the original breakaway group, and with that they just find themselves in a strong position. So they've clearly been very, very active on this first lap here, and I think with the next couple of climbs coming, I think we're going to see some more action again, actually, because it's a circuit that lends itself to attacking racing, because you're always driving, you're always chasing into the bottom of a climb to keep position, and then there's always someone who's quite keen on going hard up the climb, and then in between there's all sorts of trying to get back on and trying to sort of drive the breakaway again. So it lends itself to really aggressive type of racing.
Tosh van der Sande, who kicked this one off, was second in the Tour de Wallonne last year, in fine form, and he's the ideal rider, isn't he, to try and perhaps go for glory, go for his own ambitions. If that works out, well and good. If not, well, they've got considerable guns to fire in the shape of Tej Benoot, third in this event back in 2017, and Tim Wellens fourth over the line 12 months ago. Another man that's in absolutely flying form. Grosu, has he got enough to hold off these guys? Thomas Buda as well is another rider who's attacked from the main group and is hanging on clear at the moment, and he's a rider who's stepped up with the Direct Energy squad this year. Rider of some ability, had a great end to last season, and I think many people in France believe that they've got a good one, and that Thomas Buda could be a rider for the future. Clearly he's still full of fight for all the activity that's gone on so far in this race.
I think he finds himself in quite a difficult position here now, because he's not actually catching Jack Haig and Van der Sande. So I think he needs to probably sit up and wait for these guys to catch back up again.
Floris Tatira at the back. He's done his best, he's done his bit. Grosu is harried and chased down now by the remainder of his former breakaway companions. They're not companions anymore, because look at just behind this group of breakaway riders is Jack Haig from Mitchell & Scott, leading Tosh van der Sande from Lotto Soudal. Up to these riders here from the early break. It's been up the road all day. Who's still got energy to race? Dries de Bont naturally has energy, and he's practically lifting the front wheel off the ground in his efforts to race clear. The Verandas Willems Krellen rider will not be found wanting today.
Yeah, interesting move that he's going up the road already now on his own with 58k to go. I think they're probably a bit nervous about what's happening behind and how close is the peloton. The peloton is still at 54 seconds, so they still have a significant gap, and it probably would have been a wise idea to let Van der Sande and Jack Haig get into the bunch there to that group and start working with them and see if they could build on that time gap again. And obviously Lotto Soudal are going to sort of calm down a bit with the rider up the front, and Mitchell and Scott aren't going to do anything either. So I think it would have been smarter there to just wait a bit and let the race start developing again.
Emotions are bound to be running high, and it's interesting that his bike has the brake lever on the top, on the handlebars from the top. So I mean, it must have been a very, very difficult few days, and you just wonder what the level of preparation for the entire squad is coming into this race. They've just managed to assemble a squad that can go racing, and yeah, well, he's laying it all out there.
I think obviously it will have been a very, very difficult couple of days for the team and for everyone involved who knows Michael Gorlitz, but at the same time, the best thing that these guys can do, and what probably Michael himself would have wanted, is for the team to carry on and do the best that they can and do their do what they're passionate about doing, and in that way sort of celebrate his memory.
50 seconds to that group now. Been a bit of a stall up front, so things have changed a little bit. And there's the changing characters. The BMC squad themselves coming with some very, very strong riders, believe now that they've got to take responsibility. Just under 50 seconds to our group of breakaway riders up front, comprising those from the early break of the day. There's at least 6 of those riders still involved up front, and we've got 2 fresher riders in the shape of Tosh van der Sande, the Lotto Soudal squad. Jack Haig from the Mitchelton Scott squad have gone racing up front, and they have now put it up to the BMC team of Dylan Tuns, 11th overall in the Itzulia Basque Country last week. Coming off pretty good form, 9th in Valenciana for Kilian Franchini earlier this year. Joseph Roskopf. What about Nathan van Hooijdonk, a famous name? He's the nephew of the record holder in this event, Edvig van Hooijdonk. His uncle won this race on no less than 4 occasions back in the late 80s and early 1990s. And young Nathan van Hooijdonk would like to do something similar. But up front we've got Dries de Bont, probably Verandas Willems Krellen's squad. Rode Paris-Roubaix on Sunday, and well, probably hasn't been able to think straight since then, really. 26 years of age now. He's been on the team since 2015. Second at Ronde van Drent earlier this year, so coming through the Classics season in pretty good form.
Yeah, very good form indeed. It's one of these parts of the year that everyone focuses on, whether you're an early part of the classic season cobblestone rider, or whether you're heading into the Ardennes Classics. Just trying to pin your form round about this time of the year is it's the same thing for everyone does it. Everyone really has a go at it, apart from maybe the absolute out and outright stage race specialists who tend to hang on to their form a little bit later. But then again, it's such an important part of the year, and such important races for your Palmares to you've got to give them a go at some point.
Yeah, and as you suggested, probably was somewhat of a folly for Dries de Bont to go clear himself on his own, as Tosh van der Sande is trying to get something organised here. Naturally, Jack Haig and himself are the strongest riders in there, but if there are joules of energy still available from the early break, well, they're going to try and marshal those and corral them and get the most out of them, because that gap's coming down to 40 seconds now. Was it 50 seconds? It's on a knife edge, but there's a long, long way to go here, and still a lot of hills to be climbed and a lot of plays to come from the group behind. And really that group of 8 or 9 riders up front needs to have a much bigger advantage than this coming to the back end of this race. So where's the movement going to come? Are they going to be given a little bit more rope?
Well, I think that the movement is coming every time chasing into the bottom of these climbs, where the riders in the bunch are fighting for position to hold a good position into the bottom of the climb, so that they don't get caught behind a rider. It's so easy when you're going from these fast flat roads into a steep climb, and you have to drop down to the well, for those who have a small chain ring, drop down into a little chain ring, and you can end up dropping the chain, and all of a sudden you're parking up the half of the bunch, and if you get caught behind that, then you spend the next 10, 15, 20k trying to chase back on again and wasting valuable energy. So that's why the teams are getting into the front here now and really driving it on. It's not to try and catch the breakaway, not at this point anyway, with 53 kilometers to go. It's more a question of just making sure that they are turning into the next climb front row.
BMC have put big numbers on the front now. They've got to take responsibility of this. Haven't seen much of Quick-Step, have we? Just catch a side of Bob Jungels in the Luxembourg National Road Race Champions jerseys on the left-hand side of the bunch, as we pick up the side of the red, white and blue colours. And this is certainly a race that would suit the particular talents and characteristics of a rider of the calibre of Bob Jungels. And they've got a young lineup. The Quick-Step squad dominated the classic season so far. Have they got a rider to win today? They didn't get the victory that they so desired in Paris-Roubaix last Sunday, found wanting somewhat. But oh, that's not ideal either, is it, for Tom Bowley, BMC rider?
He looks like he's spent all the energy that he had. Obviously something else going on there that's not particularly comfortable.
Well, I think he's feeling too good, yeah, so it looks like some sort of a clothing malfunction or some sort of a dress adjustment needing to be made there. He's got the right number for a difficult day, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's not quite sure what's going on there.
Well, we don't want to dwell on it, do we?
No.
Because he's obviously in his own difficulties. Another man with problems of a more conventional nature. It's front wheel puncture for Floris Hertz, and he obviously felt like he was on a reasonable day, because sense of frustration that he's not, the team car isn't going to get to him just quite as quickly as he would like.
Yeah, it's clearly not a good time in the race. We're starting to get towards that sort of the pointy end of the race, really, with 52k to go, and these climbs, like I said, are just coming so tight all the time, and for every time you have to waste energy to chase back on, it's a, you know, you're basically losing your chances of doing well. And in this particular case for Floris Hertz, here we go. That's one of the reasons for why you want to be at the front.
And all sorts of shenanigans, and yes, it's a well-made point, isn't it? Israel Cycling Academy. Fortuné as well, riders suffering a little bit. That looked like Florian Vachon for Team Van Winden for the Israel Cycling Academy, and that's a nasty little bump, I think, for Vachon. Takes a seat at the side of the road, and I suspect is going to play no further part in the destination of honours, and that's it's a painful one too for Van Winden. Let's try and pick it up from the middle of the bunch, and yeah, it looked like it was Van Winden that went down and took Vachon with it.
Strange crash, because it didn't actually go all that quick into the. It was after the corner, so when the bike had actually straightened up, so it must have got caught in something. Clearly not very comfortable.
Mechanic readies his bike.
It's painful, that
if and when he suggests he decides to get back on the bike, but yeah, he's in some discomfort.
Well, when a bike rider has to bite on something to mask up the pain, then usually it means that it's quite severe.
Especially if it's one of his own limbs.
Yeah.
Team Rompot on the front now, trying to charge along. They've got a rider up the road in the shape of Reinders, but Peter Weening, Pim Ligtart, riders of that calibre, well, they can do a job. Now we start to see Quick-Step making their presence felt towards the front of the peloton. Young lineup. They've got Fabio Jakobsen, who's in stunning form. You wouldn't expect that a rider of his caliber would get up that finishing hill, but then the climb in Nokere Corsa, where he took the victory, the young Dutchman Fabio Jacobsen up from the under-23 ranks, and really flying this year already with 2 big wins in the classic season. And Jacobsen could be a man to watch, but will they aim to support Bob Jungels? So many strong riders in there. Remy Cavagna, Casper Asgreen, Jonathan Norvez, and Peter Seri was 3rd in this race way back in 2012. Bunch still strung out, giving you an idea of the intensity and the technical nature of this finishing circuit. While they're scrabbling to stay on the coattails of the Lotto Soudal and Mitchelton Scott Axis up front. Dries de Bont on the back of the breakaway group here. 50 kilometers remaining on Brabantse Pijl for 2018. And around this beautiful S-bend in Overijse.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful in the dry, but as you can see on the lens, it's starting to rain a little bit. A slight bit of drizzle going on, and this circuit itself, it gets a lot harder when it's wet, because of obviously the technical, the amount of corners that we're negotiating all the time on the circuit. Obviously you're having to slow down a lot more to take a corner in the wet than you can in the dry, and then you're having to pick the speed back up again to what it should be on the straight, and that ends up hurting the riders a lot more, and with that you tend to see more splits opening up. And also all of these guys they can go around the corner pretty much the same speed in the dry, but then there are certain riders who are far better in the wet than others, and straight away that also causes a problem then inside the peloton. The gaps opening up quite easily because the rider just can't quite hold that pace.
It's a great festival of bike racing in and around the Brabantse Pijl. They really have races for all categories, all ages, all calibers, and of course there's an elite women's race, very important bike race today. And I can tell you it's Ghent-Wevelgem winner Marta Bastianelli that has taken the victory. She's backed up that win in Ghent-Wevelgem by taking Brabantse Pijl.
Interestingly enough as well, there's a junior or an under-19 category and an under-17 category as well being raced here on the same day, so clearly it's very much possible to put on bike racing for all categories. Yeah,
close the road and put on lots of different bike racing, and it really is a great festival, great opportunity, as we see not exactly a perfect moment for Tyler Williams as he back on his bike pretty quickly. Just saw him stepping off his bike, no harm, no foul really, but finds himself a few meters in arrears, and that wasn't exactly a perfect moment. Bahrain Merida on the front. Just to finish that thought about the women's race, Maria Bastianelli for Ale Cipollini taking the win ahead of Leah Kirkman for Team Sunweb, and the great Marianne Vos for Wild Deals Pro Cycling, showing that she's returning to something like her best form, with a great 3rd place rounding out the podium. That's the women's podium. Who's going to mount the 3 steps on the men's podium? Still a lot of riders with the belief. "26 seconds now to the riders up front, and just ramping it up a little bit. Sonny Cambrelli sitting in a nice position, isn't he? Sitting in 3rd place in line. 3 up front. It's the 2 that came across. That's Jack Haig on the front here in the yellow and dark blue colours of Mitchelton Scott. Tosh van der Sande in the red and white of Lotto Soudal, and the darker colours of Nippo Finivantini, worn by Grossu, the Romanian, who's from the early break and showed that ambition to go out front. And now he finds himself now with the fresher riders. That's pretty much what he'd hoped for. Meanwhile, these riders will endure for as long as they possibly can. Dries de Bont looks absolutely out on his feet, doesn't he? But he's gonna hang on for as long as he possibly can ahead of the peloton that's mass across the road. And we don't sense at the moment that they're minded to close this one down. Still a long, long way to go.
Yeah, this is still a long way to go. 47 kilometers, and on this circuit, that is some way to, and also to deal with all of these short, sharp, steep climbs all the time. Like I've said before, it does tend to wear you down quite quickly. So I don't think the racing is anywhere near over yet, and if anything, it's just about to start.
Peter Knight tweeted in, it's at DQ Sport for myself, or at Maggie_PR if you want to have, if you've got interesting observation or a question or two for the man alongside. And Peter Knight says, one thing I noticed when I was racing, when on corners from tarmac to cobblestone, is getting the balance right if you're not used to it. Could that be the cause of the fall? Was it the surface change?
Well, it can definitely be that, and you're right in that, saying, Peter. It is difficult to get the balance between different surfaces, and certainly going on to cobblestones. Obviously, you can't corner anywhere near as fast on cobblestones as you can on tarmac. Not even a Peter Sagan with his cornering ability will they be able to go around the corner as quick on cobblestones. But in saying so, you tend to develop a technique where you know when the surface is going to change. You actually ride in a different way, you corner in a different way, and the World Tour riders that we got here as well, they tend to corner in a different way to what certainly is being taught in the UK and through the cycling clubs and federations over here, where you tend to, it seems like most of the younger riders are getting taught to lean their body in as far over the bike as they possibly can. Whereas if you're looking at these guys, they're actually leaning the bike more than what they're leaning the body. And with that, the bike is easier to pick up if you have a slight slip. Whereas if your body is leant over like a motorbike driver, then it's incredibly difficult to lift that weight back up over the bike again if the bike slides.
Yeah, it's an interesting technical point, and
yeah,
we had a long conversation about it recently. It's fascinating.
Whatever's being taught is basically do the opposite and you're perfect.
Yeah, inevitably, almost inevitably, it's changed. But it is fascinating to watch these riders. They will put the bike lower and they'll keep their own personal center of gravity, put the center of gravity, put their head where that is.
But it also helps to put the if you're putting the weight like you just said over the bike and lean the bike down, it actually helps put weight on the tyres in a sideways motion, which means you're forcing the tyre into the ground, and that just gives you that little bit more grip as well.
Sport Flandern on the attack now, trying to put the cat among the pigeons, and it looked to me as if Narvaez, the Colombian rider, was trying to cover that one for the Quick Step squad. Sport Flandern have a pretty strong lineup. Preben van Heck among their number. Eamon de Gent also in there, as the group behind hasn't fractured under that assault. Not too close to the front at any rate. Now we've got the three up front as we pick up Grosu. Well, that's it. That's pin pulled and just couldn't go any further. The legs just won't do it. It's as simple as that. That wasn't voluntary.
It was almost like the chain fell off then.
Yeah. Wheels fell off, and the world needs to go around underneath his wheels quite a bit quicker, because he's not going to be able to make any forward momentum. Forward momentum is certainly coming thick and fast now from the group behind, as Quick Step starting to move it up. Grosu is absorbed without, well, I was going to say without so much as a backward glance, but there was time enough for one of those. Less for Grosu and more, I think, for the riders behind. What sort of damage did that create?
Yeah, well, every little climb here, there's certainly little gaps opening up, and I think we're also losing, if we start looking from the back of the bunch, we are losing probably 3, 4, 5 riders every single climb at this point. It's what I'd like to call a bit of a drop-off race. Yeah,
it's an elimination race, isn't it? And Thomas Buda, who was on the attack not so long ago for Direct Energy, has just gone out the back, so it just shows you, and that just, I think, gives you a sense of what an impressive job this is being done here by Tosh van der Sande and Jack Haig, because, well, they're disappearing, and it's we wave goodbye to Dries de Bond. What a great effort from him. Oh no, it's actually was going to say that he's just dropped out of the break, but it looks like he's got some sort of mechanical issue and he's calling for assistance from his team car.
Yeah, I think he's just run out of gears there. They basically the battery is no longer working. So
he's just he's just trying to refit the cable at the back. He's
just swapping the batteries between the front mech and the rear mech, so giving himself some battery power for the back end of the bike.
Well, it looks like his car is there to give him a bike. But for Dries de Bont, it's going to be very, very difficult and super impressive he gets back into the action. It's all guns a-blazing now at the front of Brabantse Pijl for 2018 as the big guns start a fire. And this constant situation where the elastic snaps, the group fractures. We've got different groups of riders on the road, and then they come back again on the descent. And eventually, well, you just can't close the gap anymore, or worse still, someone 10 riders in front of you lets it go, and that's it. It's impossible to come around 10 riders and close the gap. Meanwhile, up front, slogging away. And it's, well, the gap is coming down. Nonetheless, and plenty of communication between these two riders. They need to motivate each other, and, well, there's no question but that they've got common interest at the moment.
Yeah, they do, but the gap isn't particularly big at the moment, and with that, you know, is it worth sort of persevering with this, or are they just hovering out there now, hoping that there's going to be a number of riders coming across? Because that 18-20 second gap is very much bridgeable by any number of riders, even a lone rider like we're seeing here now, and that looks like it's a Sport Vlaanderen rider who's just going out from the peloton trying to bridge across.
So Sport Vlaanderen are showing plenty of ambition. They've got riders into this lead group. They've got the numbers to try and push on for glory. And none of the World Tour teams are minded to worry about this one, and it's noticeable the block goes on. That's indeed Benjamin de Klerk. Had settled his arms over the bars, settled into that comfortable uncomfortableness.
Yeah, I think that's going to be difficult to get across actually as a lone rider. It is possible, definitely, but the two riders out front there, they're clearly going very, very strong, and as a lone man, I think that's an awful lot of energy to invest into a break that we don't even know whether it's going to go up there yet. And here we go, got the riding.
Van der Sande looks good, doesn't he? But Hague just gets out of the saddle and closes the gap, and these riders have the advantage of being able to find the smoothest surface possible.
It is so difficult to ride in that gutter, though. Those 20-25 centimeters worth of smooth ground, they're so difficult to sort of maintain that stability as you're going up there and trying to put out a max effort at the same time. So sometimes it's, you know, if you end up coming out of that section and you just go on your own, you could just go out on the cobblestones for a bit instead, and it's actually easier that way.
Canola on the attack, just mops up de Klerk without so much as by your leave, and the man from Nippo, Vinny Fantini, his teammate Grossu, already absorbed by the peloton and back in the fold, but Canola's in good form. And Canola is putting it up to them. Across yet another climb. This one is the Hertstraat.
That was an impressive move by Canola there.
Hertstraat, 4 ascensions of this climb, 730 meters in total, about 3.6% average. Doesn't look like much, does it? But that 8% little gripper at the beginning is what really makes it difficult, and then there's not much recovery. It's almost a plateau at the top where you suffer to try and get your breath back and retain some sort of control. Now trying to get control of the front of the peloton. And the bunch in one long line, 40 kilometres remaining. It's been all action all day long. The group going away from the beginning of the day. 7 riders clear with over 7 minutes of an advantage at one stage. Well, that was whittled down by the time we came to these finishing circuits. We're on the second of 3 finishing circuits of 23.6 kilometres. And it's yet to be decided the full composition of this group that will it be a sprint from a small group, or will it be a solo rider, or will it be a breakaway clear at the finish line? Still, we've got a couple of riders just hanging on to an advantage. It's stretched out once more to 28 seconds for Jack Haig and for Tosh van der Sande from Mitchelton Scott and Lotto Soudal respectively. Behind the attacks, the stalls, well, it's all adding up to that half-minute advantage for those two out front. Arashiro's done great work for Bahrain Merida. And will he have the energy and the enthusiasm to try and get back in there? That looks like he certainly does. He's getting winched across the gap. Brice Fayou, former winner of stage of the Tour de France, is going to help him across. Warren Barguil among the Team Fortunato Samsic lineup, and another man who made a surprise move to a Pro Conti outfit during the winter. Moved a couple of stage wins in Tour de France. But, he's decided to go into the Pro Conti outfit. He's very much the leader, and 15th in the Volta Catalunya for Warren Barguil as he got the form to represent Fortunato Samsic at in the final today. Remains to be seen. This is Chris Nealons, the Israel Cycling Academy rider, will be famous forever for propelling Vincenzo Nibali to fame in Milan-San Remo earlier this year. Great attack on the Poggio, but didn't quite work out for him, but certainly a very useful springboard for Vincenzo Nibali on that occasion.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, what a ride that was by Nibali in the end.
Is this Bully trying his luck? Surely not.
It looks a bit more like Buckwalter to me.
Yes, Brent Buckwalter, of course, from the grizzled US rider. Has a little look around. It's more about settling down, isn't it? Just as I said, Cofidis not happy with that, or happy enough perhaps that it's settled down to the point where you can recover enough for an attack. It's all action. Super entertaining stuff. One of those attacks that didn't quite get off the front of the bunch, but it did serve to stretch it out and prevents a lot of riders from recovering.
Yeah, it certainly does. You got to get the timing right for these attacks as well. And on this particular circuit, it's when it stalls and when the bunch is just about to start spreading out across the road, that's when you need to come from the back, carrying a certain amount of speed and just nipping through that tiny gap, almost causing a bit of carnage in the bunch, and that's where you get that big sort of initial gap opening up.
Wanty Group Gobert, Frederick Backaert in attacking form, the Belgian rider for the Belgian squad. Andrea Pascal's a fine sprinter for them, but he'll do well to sprint up the hill, I think. Has he managed to make it in here? Jerome Bonnice is another man that has a good turn of speed. Well, maybe not in the sprint, but certainly to get off the front, given the opportunity. But it's Frederick Backaert for Wanty Group Gobert has taken his chance up front. BMC now want to try and own this one. Still out front, these riders. Haig and van der Sande, they're working so well together. And it seems, well, a very difficult ask for Frederick Backaert to make it across nearly a half-a-minute gap. So two out front into the final 37 kilometres of Brabantse Pijl. Will they hang on out front? Find out after these. Well, it's a brave effort as Frederick Backaert Look behind, is that to find out how much of a gap he has, or are they going to catch me, because this actually hurts a little bit. He's trying to race across a half-minute gap to the two riders up front, Tosh van der Sande from Lotto Soudal and Jack Haig from Mitchelton Scott, that are the current survivors of, well, no, of course, they counter-attacked from the bunch. And all of the early breakaway riders, all 7, have now been absorbed, mopped up, and for the most part spat out the back. And well, in terms of this race, at any rate, forgotten about for the next little while. It's been a brave effort from them, but the two up front controlling that half-minute gap, with Frederick Backart trying to get across. Serge Powell's just showing a little bit of interest to try and race clear, and some of the heavy hitters now starting to gravitate towards the front. Bob Youngles stepping into third. WB, Accurate Protect, and Lotto NL Jumbo as well, the contrasting yellow shades also to the fore. So Frederick Backart not successful in his effort to close down a half-minute gap to the two riders up front, Tosh van der Sande of Lotto Soudal and Jack Haig of Mitchelton Scott. And it's Serge Powell's. He's a veteran now, isn't he, from the Dimension Data squad, 34 years of age, and a rider who was, I think, 15th in this race a couple of years ago. Certainly knows it well, goes reasonably well into the finish of it, but not perhaps the really big firepower to contend. So he knows he's got to try and get off the front, and this is probably the sensible tactic for Dimension Data. And there's a couple of very strong and impressive riders, not least, of course, Bob Youngles, that has seen perhaps the merit in that idea.
Yeah, well, as soon as there's one of these sort of dangerous riders that go up the road, then you got to respond to it, or certainly one from your team has to be part of that. And this one with Serge Powell's driving it on at the or sort of opening up that gap has certainly sparked a fair bit of interest from nonetheless than Gasparotto and Youngles.
Enrico Gasparotto, second in this race 2 years ago, sits second in line, just picks it up, and Lindemann, Bert-Jan Lindemann for Team Lotto NL Jumbo has loved this race. Sorry, 5th actually he was in 2017. I check my notes. 28 years of age now, the man in yellow, now working his way back towards the back of the group. The Serge Powell's the Belgian veteran, 34 years of age now, hands over to young Luxembourg rider Bob Youngles. He's around a few years now, Youngles. We think of him as a young pretender, but he's 25.
Everything is relative.
Yeah, well, really, yeah. They're all young. Indeed. The oldest man in this race is Svein Tuft, who will be 41 in not such a long time, just over a month's time. And the youngest rider, for statisticians, is Tanguy Turgis from the Vital Concept Cycling Club. A mere 19 years of age. 15 seconds, and that is to the group up front. And now we've got a little bit of a reset. Gasparotto goes to the front and wants to keep this one at a fast pace. That's not so much a full-blooded attack as just keep the tempo high and try and hold on to that little advantage, or at the very least make it difficult for other riders to come back in. If you've made a big effort to get out front, you might as well make it as difficult as possible for other riders to get back onto your tail. So Gasparotto puts his nose in the wind, and is the big bet for them still Colbrelli, do you feel?
Yeah, I think the game plan is Colbrelli, but I think that looks like Van Ende has just punctured. He was bouncing around on his bike trying to see what was going on. Something didn't feel right, and then went straight on the radio. So I would have suggested that's a rear wheel puncture for Jelle Van Ende.
Yeah, he was going so well early on. Began the attacking for the Lotto Soudal squad, Jelle Van Aert. But could be just stepping out of this one. Another jersey I pick out. Spanish national road race champion. That's Herrada. Jesus Herrada with the Cofidis squad, 27-year-old. 4th on GC in the Tour of Le Mans. Seems like a lifetime ago at this point, doesn't it? And obviously wintered well and has come into the season in strong form, and heading up the Cofidis team and enjoying his visits to Brabantse Pijl. Racing across Flemish Brabant. racing into and around Overijse today, at 28 kilometers south of Brussels. Predominantly a Dutch-speaking part of the world, but for all that, there are plenty of French speakers as well. It's one of those rare parts of Belgium where there's a real mix of language and a real integration between the two traditions, the two cultural traditions in this nation. Harada taking off the arm warmers, so even the Spanish riders think this is pretty good conditions.
Tropical Belgian conditions.
Yeah. Usually the Spanish riders come in, you know, till about May. They're muffled up to the nose, but not today. It's beautiful, balmy conditions as Van den Aert still waiting for service.
Yeah, it's taken a little bit too long in time, but then the race is split up behind him, so with that you've got to wait for your team car to get there, and this is definitely very unfortunate for Van den Aert.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? And that group is knitting back together again. A lot of riders coming back into the fray. Ted van Hooydonk, among others. Chris Nealons and the entire Israel Cycling Academy. Van den Aert steps clear, postman style, and it's a rear wheel puncture, which won't make it any quicker. Will he be able to get back in? Still 30 kilometers remaining, and it is a big group up the road, so it's certainly not completely beyond the bounds of possibility that Van den Aert won't be able to make a further contribution for the Lotto Soudal squad.
Yeah, I think he should be able to get back in there again. It's you know, he's still within the convoy of cars that we got behind the race, so I'm sure he'll manage to work his way through it again, and you know, still got a little bit of a time before we head up the next climb, so it should be okay.
Well, the gap continues to yo-yo for Tosh van der Sande on the front, and Jack Haig behind. Just 15 seconds to the good. The black armband signifying the memory of Michael Gullarts of the Vrandels Willems Krallen squad, who tragically lost to us last Sunday, and remembered by Tosh van der Sande, his compatriot with the Lotto Soudal team. And up front in Brabantse Pijl, inside 30 kilometers to go now as the bunch condenses once more. Spreads wide across the road. The Bahrain Merida squad have Enrico Grasprola sitting third wheel, and Sonny Colbrelli is there safely in there as well. So they've got a couple of options. Israel Cycling Academy want to try and own this one on the front of the peloton. Clearly plenty of ambition there. Bovan was the former Canadian National Road Race champion on the front. They've got Sparagli, who's a fine sprinter. Can he get up a hill at the end of it? Be a big ask. August Jensen as well. Chris Nylands has shown some good form, but he's gone raiding early on. Sitting third wheel of the Israel Cycling Academy riders. Meanwhile, the Bahrain Merida team trying to get command of this peloton once more.
Yeah, really investing an awful lot of energy into the bottom of this climb every lap, and I'm just wondering, you know, is it really worth that much to get into this? It's still a fairly wide climb. Okay, it's got those gutters that are clearly a lot easier to ride in terms of certainly rolling resistance, but at the same time, there's an awful lot of energy being invested into just turning in there, especially now when the bunch isn't massive anymore. I think it would be wiser to sort of save that energy a fraction and just kind of sit 10-15 wheels back and then try and make that final move just with a couple of 100 meters to the corner.
Into the third and penultimate ascent of the Iskelderlaan, 400 meters of pain and suffering at an average of 8%. Again, taken in isolation, nothing to trouble these riders. Add it all up, and there's a total of 27 of these comparable hills throughout the day. It's a match burnt each time. In a big book of matches to race a classic of this caliber. 202 kilometers in total. Colbrelli is surviving, as indeed he did 12 months ago. The Italian rider. He's relatively burly by stature in comparison with so many of the other riders, but he really does get over these climbs well.
Yeah, he does. I mean, there's certain riders cope with this in a better way than others, and you know, it certainly wasn't my forte, although I did go okay here one year, but yeah, everyone's different, aren't they?
Gasparado's lungs just emerging through his rib cage at the bottom of his stomach. Almost looks like his big belly, but I'll tell you what, that's just enormous lung capacity. That's what that is, and he needs all of it at the moment. Made a big effort. A couple of big efforts have been made here as well. Van der Sande going well with Jack Haig. Jack Haig, the 24-year-old. Van der Sande, 27 years of age now. As I said, second on overall classification of the Tour of Wallonia in 2017. Second place finish in Paris Tour Elites. The big wins have eluded him so far in his career, but you feel that this is a rider that can come up with some. Another man wants to come up with something and show the stars and stripes is the US National Road Race champion, Larry Warbass. What has he got planned for the Aqua Blue squad? In the early break, courtesy of Calvin Watson, the Australian rider, and it's the US rider for Aqua Blue. Aqua Blue struggling for entries to the big races. They found out, and it has been confirmed to them, that they won't be among the wildcard selection for the Vuelta a España at the end of this year, despite their stage victory last year. But there are new Spanish Pro Continental outfits that the organisers have seen fit to favour on this occasion. So Aqua Blue have got to find the victories elsewhere.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate for them, I think. Not getting a Grand Tour in 2018 after a very strong 2017 season, I think is somewhat strange, but there we are. It's
Rick Delaney, the Rick Delaney, the owner of Aqua Blue, has been very vocal in social media. He just feels that it's very unfair. But well, I know there are so many demands made on the organisers in terms of how they allocate those wildcard spots. 18, of course, 18 spots guaranteed to the World Tour teams in those Grand Tour events and other World Tour events, and then there's a number of wildcard team places that are offered.
There's only one way to be sure to be going to them, and then you'll be going to all three of them, and that's
Go World Tour.
Go World Tour, get that license for World Tour.
It's a big step up in budgets, but not beyond the bounds of possibility. It's certainly a very ambitious squad. He said he's going to back it through 5 years. The Cork entrepreneur, Rick Delaney. Down to 26 kilometres and down to 20 seconds the advantage for the two out front. Josh van der Sande. And that was a big setup for Israel Cycling Academy. They try to place their top rider into position, the Sparagli, and that would suggest that he's not too confident of his ability to get up the hill and sprint for glory at the end.
Yeah, it's quite strange that he's not waiting for this one and then sort of settling in the bunch and just being a bit more patient. But sometimes it's easy to sort of get caught up in the moment, and if your team is racing in a certain way, then you kind of get caught up in doing the same thing. So I think he would have been better off just hanging in there, waiting a bit longer, and trying his luck in the sprint.
Very interesting move for Christian Sparagli. He's traditionally and typically he's been a bunch sprinter in his career. The Italian rider has moved over to Israel Cycling Academy from Team Dimension Data. Good acquisition for them, for sure. Strong rider. Has decided to go solo and see if he can get across to those two riders up front who have extended their advantage once more. After each of these hills, there's a little regroup, a little rethink in the bunch, a little reshuffling of the pack. And now the two up front on the next climb, and their advantage will dwindle once more. Haig just settling in alongside 27-year-old Belgian Tosh van der Sande in the red and white of Lotto Soudal on the front. Jack Haig behind, the Aussie rider, 24 years of age. Great stage victory in Tour of Poland in 2017. The real standout performance for him, where he survived ahead of the group led in by Wout Poels of Team Sky. Career-defining win. Second on GC in Tour of Slovenia, and 8th in 2016. Of course, he survived for 8th on GC in Tour of Poland last year as well. So strong rider, emerging talent. Sparagli's period out front, all too brief. He goes back into the peloton to think about what he did. The gap's gone out to just right about half a minute as the two riders up front are going to get the bell very shortly. They're going to come across the line and sent out for one more local lap in Brabantse, Pijl. Meanwhile, the bunch behind are on the steepest part of the climb, the finishing climb. Next time round, Gasparotto and friends will be sprinting for glory. They'll be sprinting for the honour of being the champion of Brabantse Pijl of 2017. And the Mitchelton Scott squad want to put riders to the front as well, as indeed do the Quick Step team. Going to go on the attack, are they? The Quick Step team need to try and do something. Left it later than some other squads. It's the bell for the two riders up front. Vital Concept want to be aware of the danger of any move as well. I mean, Kevin Retzer that's decided to tag on to that one. Showing at 42 seconds, that's as big a gap as they've had in quite a while, so they didn't exactly go up that one full gas, did they? Not by the standards of the previous couple of laps.
No, you can see that on the peloton as well. It's far more sort of together than it has been in coming up here the previous couple of times.
Yeah, it's a bigger group. A lot of riders that don't have the bother of trying to get back into contention and back onto the wheel.
I think the next climb here is the one that's really difficult, and the one that seems to split the bunch up. And the Hagard climb that certainly has, over the last couple of laps, really caused a bit of a difficulty for the riders.
Yeah, it's short, but it's violent. 230 meters, you know, it depends on where you measure these things, but
yeah.
The official measurement, someone's official measurement is 230 meters, but at an average of 15.2%, so it's a bit of a wall. It's often the power to weight, it's against the gradient that can make it complicated. Howell's towards the front again for dimension data. Look for Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Is he just peeking out?
Well, I think Boasson-Hagen would be a really good bet for today's race, because he's fast enough. He can definitely climb on these type of hills. So I think he's an outside really dangerous man for today. Well, not even an outside anymore, actually. He's definitely going to be one of my favourites.
It's a big bunch going to the next hill of the day. As Magnus has mentioned, that's the Hagard. A few Hagard faces, I tell you, by the time they get to the top of that. The bad puns will end very shortly. The big racing's going to happen.
Are there any good ones? Well,
really, not coming from this side of the commentary box, that's for sure. Not today, anyway. 300 meters, 10%, maximum 16. That's what they reckon it is. Suffice it to say, it's steep. And it's particularly steep at the beginning. Jack Haig and Tosh van der Sande will try and measure their efforts as best they can. It's down to 33 seconds. They just dangle out the front for such a long time. Been such a brave effort, and they're hoping against hope now that something will come across, that there'll be a split, and that it'll be a relatively small group of riders that will come across.
Yeah, looking at how this is shaping up with the riders in the front here now, I think the Bahrain are going to want this to come down to some form of a sprint finish. Dimension data definitely look like they want to kind of continue to keep control of this, and there's Cockard is there as well, so I think Vital Concept is going to start doing the same kind of work to try and keep this together into the bottom of the final climb, and then see whether their man can finish it off.
Well, Gasparotto seems to enjoy the period out front. Of course, he's got control of the peloton, staying well to the fore. Colbrelli is fighting a little bit to stay in the wheels, perhaps not enjoying it quite so much.
He's just got one of those really busy riding styles where it looks like he's flat out even if he's cruising at 10k an hour.
Bahrain Merida on the front. Vital Concept well there as well. We look for Brian Kokar, how far down the line is he? The rider's struggling. Not enjoying that one. Half a minute behind. No real gain there. So the big punch has yet to be thrown by any of these riders. Picked out Chris Jensen not too far from the front as well for the Mitchelton Scott squad a little while ago. He was well up in this race 12 months ago, the Danish rider. 6th indeed in 2017. 28 years of age. It's a race that he enjoys. It's a race he goes well in. Darrell Impey among their number as well, the Mitchelton Scott squad, so they've got a useful lineup. Not a race that suited him in the past. You might have thought that rider of Impey's calibre, he's got quite a good finish and normally gets over the short hills better than most, but he hasn't come up with any. He hasn't produced any great success in this particular event over recent years. Could this be the day? Van der Sande has not left anything back, has he? Himself and Haig must surely be feeling it now, but still with 20 kilometres remaining, the gap over half a minute.
Yeah, that half-minute gap is, it's not necessarily particularly big, but one-day races tend to have a different set of rules to them than what stage races do, and obviously everything you've got to put everything on that one card when you're doing a one-day race, and with that you find teams are gambling a bit more, not putting riders on the front and you know, working, and other riders then finding that they work harder. So yeah, that 30-second rule, or the minute per 10-kilometer rule, I should say, that we so often work within when it comes to stage racing and bringing a group back, doesn't necessarily, certainly on this technical type of course, doesn't necessarily stick to.
It's not quite, yeah, that pattern is not by any means reliable. Or, yeah. All about getting out there, and everybody suffers, don't they, in a one-day race? Everybody suffers in one way or another. You can hide as long as you can, but you'll eventually get found out. Inside 20 kilometres remaining of Brabantse Pijl of 2018, the 58th edition of this wonderful classic. That is the transition between the Flanders, traditional Flanders classics, and of course the Ardennes classic season that ends the spring one-day events that we so love. And this is the movement across. Of course, we've got the Amstel Gold for you at the end of this week. It's coming up on Eurosport. Details here somewhere, but yeah, suffice to say it's live on Eurosport this weekend, so do tune in. Pick that one up Sunday at 1:45 live on Eurosport 1.
Real puncture there for
difficult moment for Mate.
Yeah,
Luis Angel Mate, the Spanish rider with the Cofidis squad, and he'll struggle to get back in. Not beyond the bounds of possibility if he gets service reasonably quickly that he could get back in, but he's certainly going to burn a couple of matches doing it at this point. Everyone looking concerned now. Everyone wants to maintain position. Everyone's fought for this. They don't want to give it up. Colbrelli, you see him third in line here of the Bahrain Merida riders, the reigning champion. He's the one with number 1 on his back. Is it a target? Has he got the form to replicate that great performance of 12 months ago? Clearly he believes he does. Up front, the gap coming down. And we hit another one of the climbs. The Haggard coming close to the, sorry, 18 kilometres remain. Next one, the Holst, yep, Hertstraat of much more benign in average gradient, but it's quite a bit longer, 730 metres. And you've got that surface difference, which is...
Oh, here goes Colbrelli.
Well, that's an interesting move. Sonny Colbrelli has decided to launch, and he has got a busy style. Looked like he might have been struggling a little bit. Don't believe anything of it, because he is charging along. Is that Kokar that's gone with him? So the sprinters are going on the attack. Great to see.
Yeah, definitely causing straight away a response there. BMC coming up here as well as Yellow Van Endert, you got Bosenhagen, and I think the second Lotto Soudal rider is Tish Benoit.
Well, is that Franchini that's sitting in third place there and going again for the BMC? We'll find out very shortly. But BMC have got some very strong riders in here. Dylan Toombs, what sort of form is he in? Meanwhile, up front, well, the gap down to a quarter of a minute. And very shortly they're going to be caught, I feel. But is it going to be by a big group, or is it going to be by a smaller attacking group? And the attacks continue. This one's not settled. Lotto Soudal go again.
Yeah, definitely not going to be settled just yet, and the bunch is stringing out here now, so there's going to be an awful lot of opportunities to really try and sort of snap the elastic band here.
Yeah,
a few of the Lotto Jumbo riders being caught.
Yeah, it's Quick Step going in the attack, of course, and Lotto Soudal marking that one, and so the bunch in all lined out, one big long string still together. Van der Sande sensing the inevitable. He can see it, he can probably hear it. But much to his chagrin, I suspect, at this moment, it looks like it's going to be a relatively big group that's going to come back to him. For all that, though, the elastic has snapped there, but will they persevere? Will they press on?
Yeah, the question is, what do these two guys do? Do they keep on pressing on as well? Because how much do the riders behind them want to work together? Is that going to cause a bit of a problem? The fact that we're looking at probably about 15 riders or so, you never really tend to get that real good collaboration with that number of riders, and straight away there are more attacks as well, trying to split this up again. This is a perfect opportunity now to really just create that smaller 5-6 man group, and Colbrelli goes again.
Well, this is impressive stuff from Colbrelli. He wants to try and cover this one. Is it Gasparotto? Yeah, but Bahrain Merida have the numbers to try and to cover everything and make sure that they're involved in anything. And of course, these riders don't want to let those behind get back involved. Not just about closing down Van der Sande and Haig, down to 10 seconds. About 10 miles remaining, 16 kilometers of racing. This one tough to call at the moment.
Yeah, is it going to be continued of just riding, or is it going to be more attacks coming?
Haig is suffering now. Behind, more attacks. Is it BMC? Bahrain Merida right there as well. Quick Step have riders the caliber of Martinelli, Jakobsen as well. May be tempted to try his luck. Will Jakobsen be waiting for the sprint? Surprising to see Colbrelli and Brian Kokar hitting out relatively early. Conversations going on at the back of that group because, well, they don't want to let the remainder of the bunch get back involved in this one. Be an ideal situation, but it's a very narrow advantage.
It is a very narrow gap there, and I think the next climb is really going to tell whether this is splitting completely or whether it's going to come back together.
Well, just what state will this group be in by the time they arrive at that next climb, and who's going to have the legs for an attack? Who's going to risk it? Gasparotto it is. Who has a little, is that, no?
No, that looks more like Gregor Bolla to me.
Bolla has been doing some solid work on the front. Playing something of a stalking horse for the Bahrain Merida squad. Van den Aert is back on the front for Lotto Soudal.
Yeah, Lotto Soudal are finding themselves in a bit of a funny situation as well, because they don't really want to go chasing down Van der Sande, but at the same time they need to cover all the moves, and if they get a little bit of a gap and sort of end up in that position where they really want to press on and try and pull a smaller group clear again, they can't really do so because Van der Sande is sitting up there kind of blocking them from riding hard on the front.
I mean, if you're halfway across the 13-second gap, do you have the green light to go and to try and, you know, close it, or are you still almost tempting the bunch because they're not that far behind you?
You're still tempting the bunch because they're going to chase you, because you will be at this point one of the guys that are capable of winning this. You know, there's very little left of the bunch, and if you've got the legs to attack or get clear at this point in the race, then you're certainly a man who, given the right set of circumstances, can win.
Well, they're just dangling off the front, aren't they? It's back up to 17 seconds as the bunch spreads wide across the road. That suggests there's a little bit of a stall behind. That's good news for these riders for a little while longer, at least, down to the final 14 kilometres of Brabantse Pijl. And once more they get a little bit of a relief. Relief in terms of the distance, not so much relief in terms of the pain and the suffering that is going into this. And it's a great job that they're doing for Lotto Soudal and for Mitchelton Scott. But of course, yeah, it's difficult for those riders behind to play their own cards with their teammates up there. It's a tough call.
Yeah, it's a really tough call, and at certain points you have to drive it on to just to keep that position that you got and to stay where you need to be in the bunch, and it becomes a drag race, and automatically you're then eating into that advantage that your teammate has out front.
Looks like it might be Martinelli on the front four there, the Quick Step squad, setting the tempo. Quick Step trying to get control of this one now. Put manners on this peloton that has come back together again. A little bit of a stall has allowed these riders to spread their advantage, to extend it indeed back up to 15 seconds. And that you feel that they're almost out on their feet, that they you know, running out of gas a little bit, and they need bigger and bigger stalls almost to survive for a little while longer eventually. When you feel that someone is going to launch the attack that will close it down. But when's it going to come?
Well, 15 seconds in 13 kilometers is really not a big gap, and especially with the finishing hill that we got, it will be quite easy to sort of get across that gap if when the guys really start sort of pressing on in the bunch. So it's a funny sort of situation that we got right now.
Well, we're only about, what, according to the ticker, about 700 meters from the bottom of the penultimate climb of the day, and that's the Holsteide. Holsteide, just to give you the numbers, is almost a kilometre long at an average of 5.1%. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a climb to deal with than one of those so what should we call it, just little smash up kind of bergs almost, you know, that's more of a Flemish sort of saying, but that's it's one of those that we use. Those short, sharp minute efforts, they tend to be somewhat easier to get over rather than a kilometre-long effort on at this time of the race. Is you know, that's almost 2 minutes of work.
Well, it's not going to come quick enough the top of this hill for these riders, for Tosh van der Sande and for Jack Haig. That is it. It's been a brave effort. There's the numbers, 5.5, maximum 12%, as Martinelli leads them into the bottom of this climb. Who's going to go attacking? Lotto Soudal have been waiting and waiting and waiting. They've had van der Sande up front. Montfort goes to the front of the peloton to try and set the tempo. You suggest, where is the move going to come from? To where's Tim Wellens? That's the question.
Yeah, where is Tim Wellens? But right now there's quite a number of riders that we expecting to be up here that we still haven't seen really make a move. So are they just saving everything for that last time up the Chave?
Yeah, Tej Benoot as well has been conspicuous by his absence. A man who took a little bit of a break. Decided not to ride Paris-Roubaix. Had a little bit of a break and was not talking up his efforts. Van den Aert, well, it's a super effort from him to get back in after his mechanical difficulties not so long ago. But Van den Aert, after setting the agenda early on for the Lotto Soudal squad, is the one that launches this significant attack with 11 kilometres remaining. And Lotto Soudal have brought a couple of riders with them. Mitchelton Scott and Bahrain Merida have recognised the danger of that one. Quick Step scrambling to get involved.
Yeah, they certainly are. They've been a little bit on the back foot all the time, Quick Step today, but nevertheless, when it comes to crunch time, they're still there, and this is a select little group that's going clear now, and that looks like it's that. Yeah, that is Serge Pijl again going across. Serge
Pijl's clearly on a good day. 34-year-old Belgian with the Dimension Data squad is just trying to clip across to this one. Lindemann again for the Lotto NL Jumbo squad as well.
Gasparotto's looking good still.
And that's significant numbers from significant teams. And the anxiety from the squads behind. Wanty-Group Gobert trying to put a rider into this move. The more riders that, the more singleton riders from different squads that get across, the more that one could actually have some legs. But at the moment, it's just a very narrow advantage, and that's torn it for Marcinski. Thomas Marcinski back on his bike. Was it a mechanical? Did he have some other style of mishap?
I didn't see exactly what happened there, but yeah, this little group is looking very, very good indeed. Who's missed out though?
Well, Quickstep have managed to put a rider in there, but BMC are notable by their absence, and that's why they're sitting on the front. BMC squad with Dylan Tuns playing it as quiet as possible. Some good efforts from Brent Bookwalter today in his efforts to try and set something up. I thought I spotted Franchini in the most recent, one of the more recent attacks. 24-year-old Swiss rider, 9th in Valenciana a little bit earlier this season. And that gap is stretching clear. They could well 9 kilometers remaining in this race. And remember that finishing climb, 710 meters. So you've got about 8 kilometers to the bottom of that finishing hill. Can they last? They survive out front. It's going to need a sustained effort. And Lotto Soudal, the only team that have 2 riders in here. And that's why Van den Aert is absolutely full bore and not even asking for an assistance from anyone else at the moment.
No, exactly. It's he has to commit to this right now.
Eight kilometers remaining and a little bit for the group up front in Brabantse Pijl. We're down to the last knockings of this event, and the BMC have missed this effort. The final attack. Will there be room for more, and can BMC close it down? The bunch behind in one long line out. How many riders are struggling just to stay in the wheels at the moment and hang on? And can these riders up front, led by Jelle Van den Aert of the Lotto Soudal squad, this Benoot going for glory?
Well, it's definitely,
it's Wellens,
yeah, it's Wellens. It looks like Wellens, yeah,
has gone for glory. We've been waiting for this one, and it's surely the rest of them have been waiting for it too. Serge Pauwels has gone to try and cover this one for Dimension Data, recognizing the danger, recognizing perhaps indeed the inevitability of it, as Tim Wellens has gone for glory here in the final moments of the Brabantse Pijl, and Serge Pauwels is not going to be able to close that one down.
Is he going to be able to get on the wheel again, though? Because Gasparotto's taken that up straight away. They realise how dangerous Wellens is in a move like this. They've got to close this down very, very quickly indeed.
Gasparotto goes to close it down and then moves across the road. Has anyone, Bert-Jan Lendemann's got the legs to try and complete the effort? Absolute hell that he's going through at the moment, Tim Wellens, but I can tell you what, he's not the only one. And those riders, none of them seems equal to the task. Not one of them seems capable of closing it. Quickstep in the counter-attack, in the move up front. And what are their teammates thinking about in terms of trying to get up front and trying to get across to this one? And you feel that they'll be aware of the difficulty and want to try and close it down as quickly as possible, because that's Seri.
Well, this is a really, really dangerous move by Wellens, because there's none of the guys in that group just behind that are capable of closing up. The best man actually is the piece of delivery guy on the right-hand side there on the bike path. He looks to be going the best out of them, and the bunch is still too far behind to actually have any kind of possibility of making any inroads on Wellens. So with 6 kilometers to go, this is very, very dangerous for, and with the ability that Wellens has, it's very much his to lose right now.
Well, that pizza's still going to be warm, isn't it, by the time it's delivered? But I tell you what, Those riders have been out there for 200 kilometres and they're still dropping a rider who's been making an effort for fully 300 metres, if even that. That's the sort of watts that these guys can develop, and they will sustain it through to the line now. And that bunch behind, not quite yet on terms. 5.6 kilometres, just under 5 kilometres to the bottom of the finishing hill. Wellens is surely going to need a bit more than this. 26 kilometres remaining. Remember, a couple of stage wins, overall stage success.
Seri, that is.
Yeah, it is Peter Seri indeed from the Quick Step squad. Verona has managed to make it in. Pijl, we've mentioned. Maurice has also managed to infiltrate this one. And Seri, who's enjoying his visits to this race in the past as well. Third back, all the way back in 2012, the 29-year-old. Good 9th place finish in Strade Bianche, so has come into the spring in good form, but finds himself in a rear guard, fighting a rear guard action. That's a superb lead for Tim Wellens. Look at the advantage he has now. How much more does he need hitting the bottom of the climb?
Well, I don't think he's going to need much more at all. He's in a really, really good position as he comes over onto the cobbles. This next little drag up here now, it's going to be...
well, it's the Iskerdelan. It's the penultimate climb. 450 metres. Apologies if I said the Holsteiner was the penultimate climb. This, of course, is the penultimate climb of the day. And 400 metres at 8%. It's going to be a toughie. And we'll know a hell of a lot by the top of within the next 400 metres about Tim Wellens' chances of hanging on.
Yeah, we definitely will. But we'll also know whether any of these guys here have got the legs to pull clear of the bunch and start making any inroads on Tim Wellens. But at the moment, Peter Seri on the front. Doing a good job there for a Quick Step, with Gasparotto still looking very, very composed.
Well, Lindemann's got something to go, hasn't he? And while Seri struggles, Gasparotto moves across onto the wheels. Verona is the next to take it up. Carlos Verona for the Mitchelton Scott team. But Enrico Gasparotto on his wheel. Peter Seri next up. The yellow of Team Lotto NL Jumbo, represented by Bertjan Lindemann, and it's not going to be a day of any great glory heroics for Bob Jungels. Luxembourg champion looks around, sees the unwanted figure of the cameraman recording the fact that he's not going to be the Quick Step to give them yet another victory. Gasparotto looks around and sees the bunch are almost on him. 20 seconds though for Tim Wellens. This could be a famous win. 3.9 kilometres, no sign of a weakening from the Belgian up front. Lotto Soudal have been, well, pretty much in the centre of everything that's happened in this race in the final. They haven't let a single thing go up the road without that familiar red jersey. Not exactly the perfect Spring Classics campaign for them so far, but they would really like to kickstart the transition to the Ardennes Classics in perfect fashion by another great solo raid for Tim Wellens. Can he pull it off? Still 3.6 kilometres remaining. Tim Wellens clear now, 22 seconds to the good. Into the final 3 and a bit kilometres for the Belgian rider. There'll be nothing held back at this moment. He'll be cheered on to glory. But he's still got a lot to do to hold off this bunch behind, because they're going to charge up that finishing climb, and there's still plenty of riders in there with something to give.
Yeah, there definitely are, and I mean, 24 seconds, it's still very much possible if you got a couple of riders or a team that is well represented out front here now to really just empty everything they have. And right now, Gasparotto on the front there for Bahrain Merida, he knows that he's got riders in the bunch here who are definitely keen on getting this brought back, in Colbrelli being one of them. And I just wonder how much Colbrelli's got left, because he made a massive effort on that last climb. Here we go.
Well, Tim Wellens is such an exciting rider, and look at the way he's throwing it into these corners with wild abandon, because now he wants to, well, there can be nothing held back. 22 seconds to the good. It's come down a couple of seconds. It goes back up another second as he makes his way through that, and every single tenth of a second is critical at this moment. Coming into Overijse at the conclusion of 202 kilometres of tough road racing. He's got, well, 200 kilometres at this point in his legs. They'll be burning. For no one is 200 kilometres just a light ride. This has been flat-out racing throughout the afternoon, through that wonderful little technical section, and we'll be hitting the bottom of the climb not too long, not much more than a kilometre now. It's been a great career so far for Tim Wellens, and always a fascinating character because he loves to go on the attack. Really one of the entertainers, needs to go on the attack, doesn't have the finishing sprint to match some of the other riders, and it's a style of racing that he absolutely adores. Mitchell and Scott. Verona again, is it? Not so sure. He's gone to the front to try and close this one down, and well, it's the same riders that were up the road remain on the front. They're continuing to give something, but no reinforcements have come behind to make a contribution.
No, there hasn't. You're right there, and that's why so far Wellens is riding away from them, and or certainly at least holding stations with the bunch. So. He's on for a great ride here, and I think he's actually going to be able to pull this off. A kilometre and a half, and we're just about to turn up into that final climb. That
final climb, and will it be his Waterloo? Or will it be his road to glory? And that transition onto the cobbles, you saw the surface change, and he couldn't lean it over quite as much. We're on to the finishing climb. The Scavai, and in under the kite for Tim Wellens of Belgium and Lotto Soudal. Cheered on to glory. The motorbikes head away as they leave it up to the riders.
Still going very, very strong up here as well. He's got good rhythm. He's still turning over a decent gear, and the acceleration out of the corner here now is where it's all going to matter for him.
Well, speaking of acceleration, there's still a motorcycle between himself as Gasparov still continues to own this one. Where's Colbrelli, the Bahrain Merida rider, as he got the legs for an attack, for a sprint to come, as well, the groups are massing in the left and right hand side of the road looking for the best surface. Wellens looked around. It's looking good for him, I think. I think this is going to be a good one. Wellens, no sign of any diminution of strength and ability. He's still piling it into the pedals as he tries to hang on. Verona is still trying to set some sort of a tempo as behind the BMC squad try to get involved in this one. And they're scrabbling to get up there. Colbrelli starting to make his presence felt towards the front as Jakobsen starting to make his way up front. Martinelli also wants to try and get involved, but it's Wellens all the way, and I don't think anyone is going to stop him. Tim Wellens of Team Lotto Soudal is going to own this one all the way to the line. And it looks like Dylan Tunn's behind for Team BMC that is going to try and close the gap, but he's not going to get there in time. They're on to the flat bit. They're on to the final relief of gradient for Tim Wellens at the end of 202 kilometres. It's going to be a solo ride to victory for Team Lotto Soudal. They've got out there and they have honoured this race by being in pretty much every attack. They've controlled the pace for much of the afternoon, but now he can compose his victory salute, and I think it's going to be a relatively subdued one for Tim Wellens as he thinks about the win and thinks about the events in Belgian cycling over the last few days. It's a wonderful victory for Tim Wellens. He points to the sky, he points to the heavens, and he remembers his fallen compatriot. But what a great victory for him as Sonny Colbrelli honours his status as champion with a great second place finish. A 1-3 finish, could even have been a 1-2 finish for Lotto Soudal, but it's been a great day nonetheless for Lotto Soudal, absolutely guaranteed to get the win. Tim Wellens will mount the top step of the podium. He's the winner of Brabantse Pijl 2018. Well, what about that? Absolutely stunning stuff. Seemed inevitable to me that he would be caught because there were so many riders behind, but then you got a sense that they just weren't able to contribute. There weren't enough riders with enough legs to do anything about that, and that the strongest man won on the day.
Yeah, he definitely did, and he went at the right time as well to open up that gap. And you know, it really takes something special to bring back a man of this caliber, and he's clearly going very, very well at the moment ahead of the Ardennes Classic. So when they lost the wheel, that was almost inevitable that he was going to pull away and win that one. And certainly there weren't enough riders in the bunch who were strong enough to contribute to the chase. So again, I've got to take my hat off to Tim Wellens. That was a spectacular ride today.
Pretty good ride by Pijl. We'll wait for the camera to decide whether he managed to get up for second place. I think Sonny Colbrelli probably just about hung on for that. But a great 1-3 finish nonetheless, if that's as it should be confirmed. The winner, no doubt about it, Tim Wellens gets the victory in Brabantse Pijl. Let's see the moment as Tim Wellens just composes himself. Had the presence of mind to celebrate the win, but at the same moment, a subdued celebration. He points to the sky. He remembers Michael Collarts. Behind Colbrelli, just about had enough breakfast to hang on ahead of the charging Pijl. Peter Seri getting up for fourth. That's your top four. We'll celebrate that and get the podium after these. That is the moment that Tim Wellens crossed the line, secure in his position out front. Wonderful solo success for the Lotto Soudal rider. And what does that mean to him?
The next races, how important is this win with Amstel Gold Race and the Ardennes Classics in your mind?
There are 4 chances, and today was the first of the 4, so we're happy to win here. And it's not the same level as the other races, but it's a race in Belgium. It's very important for the team. It's never easy to win a race, and I'm very happy with the victory.
Your victory sign, of course, was?
Yeah, for Michael, I didn't want to celebrate because everybody's thinking about him. I didn't know him very well personally, but it's very bad what happened.
Thank you very much and congratulations. Thank you well.
Yes, nice moment from Tim Wellens. Great dignity in that finale and that last moments as he crossed the line. And he's not about to get too excited about that victory. That's the kind of caliber and the kind of status he's at. For all that, though, I think it certainly marks him as one of the favourites ahead of Amstel Gold to come at the weekend. He always races. There's something inevitability about the way that he races. He is always going to go on the attack somewhat late in the event. That's the way he plays it. Sometimes it works, sometimes more often indeed it doesn't. Here's the top 10 at the conclusion of Brabantse Pijl. Tim Wellens getting the victory ahead of Sonny Colbrelli. Pijl making it 1-3 for the Lotto Soudal squad. Seri for Quick Step, no champagne for them today. Jan Tratnik, nice 5th place finish for CCC. Pascal for Wanty Group Gobert. Dylan Tuns for BMC, not quite got enough. Hook down, great 8th place finish for Verandas Willems Krellen after what's been such a difficult week for that team. So those are the moments in the bunch behind, but they were sprinting for second, and that was understood. Colbrelli winding the big gear, just about hangs on ahead of Pijl. That was the battle for second. Tim Wellens already on his way to the podium at that moment. It's been a great Brabantse Pijl. It's been my great pleasure to bring it to you.